Thinking about storing gold? Let's explore some of the best spots for you to protect your wealth. Hi, my name is Rusudan. I have been working with Nomad Capitalist for the last 4 years, helping high net worth individuals legally reduce their taxes, get second citizenships, and go where they are treated best. We want to discuss a very important topic today, which is where do you want to store your gold? And before we jump into the different spots that are good options for you, I want to discuss why there is a need to look into those type of options and why you should be looking into maybe diversifying your assets by adding more gold to it, and any other types of asset, but for today it's gold. One very important advice that is coming from experience is to make sure that you do not store gold with a banking system. So you want to have a vault that is not connected to a bank, because in that cases, like, those vaults are also compliant with the bank regulatory environment that the country has. So you want to make sure that your gold is stored like a privately held vault or any other type of different service that is not connected to the bank. That is also something that is very important to pay attention to. The first question we should be asking, why do we want to store gold offshore? Like, isn't it better to maybe keep it with ourselves? And the answer is that no, it's not, because you want to have more security and diversification by storing gold outside of your jurisdiction, because you are more independent from what's going to happen in your jurisdiction. And we have a couple of very prominent historic examples of why that is important. For example, 1933, the US confiscated gold at a fixed price from the citizens, and overnight they devaluated their savings by a lot. So do you want to be in that kind of situation? Of course not. Also, like, for example, in the UK in 70s, they also added a couple of restrictions on the transactions in gold. That was also kind of not very good in regards to your private property protection. And more recently, the sanctions that we are seeing with Russia also points to the direction where it is better for you to be more diversified, and maybe especially with gold, because like we have like different types of assets, but gold is more tangible, and it is maybe less regulated in regards to, like, if you have a bank account, it is more easier for the bank and every government to seize it or confiscate it. And maybe if you are smart enough and you find a spot that is really protecting your assets, gold could be a very good secure option for you to protect your wealth. Now that we have spoken about why we're actually looking into keeping gold offshore, the next topic to discuss is what is it that you should be paying attention to when you're looking for a spot to store your gold. So the first thing is it has to be a jurisdiction that is very safe and secure, and it's going to provide you with long-term security and stability. And so you are looking for a jurisdiction that has economic and political stability. That's first. The second important item is to make sure that this jurisdiction has provides you with the ability to access your gold easily. Like, if you have to have, I don't know, like a visa to enter the country, or if they don't provide some kind of a service where they deliver your gold to you, I think that it doesn't make sense for you. You will not feel secure enough about your gold to maintain it in that country. So ease of access to your gold is very important. The other thing is it has to be a country where they have very high regard for property laws, like private property laws. So there's no question as to what is yours and how that ownership is protected by law. And there is no history examples of this country confiscating something, or maybe just going a bit more into detail about your property ownership and kind of having more to say about what is yours and how they can maybe change that if they change the law or something. So those kind of like security in that regard is very important. The other thing is also, of course, we do not want to, if there's an option, we do not want to have a country that has tax on storing or having some transactions in gold, selling and buying the gold. So if there's a country that has no tax on gold, no tax on capital gains on gold, it is very important. And what I would advise here is to pay attention to, because in general we are talking about capital gains and tax on fraudulent transactions and etc. But sometimes in some countries gold is specifically defined, and like the tax on gold and transactions done via gold is specifically defined. So I would make sure that there's no some kind of nothing specific about gold that you are not paying attention to. Now that we have established what we are going to pay attention to when we're choosing where to store our gold, in the next part of the video I am going to tell you about a couple of jurisdictions that we at Nomad Capitalist think are a good fit for people who want to protect their wealth and who want to have access to their gold, but also feel secure enough to kind of keep it at a distance and not in your house. The first one is Singapore, and the reason that we always say, especially with gold, talk about Singapore, is because it has proven to be very secure, like politically and economically. There is like very little chance of something happening. The proof of that is that they have never done any kind of confiscation. They have never invasively done any law or changed anything to risk your ownership of any asset there, especially gold. So it gives you security to see that there is very little chance that something is going to happen in that regard. The other advantage of Singapore in regards to keeping gold is that there's no tax there on gold, and there's also a very high regard for the property law, and it means that you will always be secure in your ownership of the gold. And it is very infrastructure also in regards to storing gold is very well established there. I think it's one of the biggest hub where you can store a lot of gold, because there are some countries where you can store like coins or something, but they do not have the infrastructure to maybe maintain a bit more of your wealth there. And Singapore doesn't have that problem. Of course, they have very well-established infrastructure where they have the services of this like privately held vaults, and every transaction is really easy. They can deliver things to you wherever you are, or you can just purchase something and they will coordinate all the logistics around that. So it is very good in that regard to not to have to think about all this like technical things that in other cases you would have to think about, because they have already thought that through and they have the processes for that. So in that regard, it is very good and easy for you to think about all the technical details, because they have thought it through and they have processes in place to make sure that you do not have to think about what to do next, because they already know. The next country that I would advise is of course Switzerland. It has hundreds of years of history of being a secure financial hub. Of course, kind of banking translated into being secure for gold storage too. And Switzerland also has privately held vaults that are not connected to the bank, which means that it is completely separate in compliance and everything. They do have a lot of options in that regard. It is the infrastructure there is also very well established, and of course we do not have to talk a lot about how secure and historically stable Switzerland has been, and the fact that it is outside of the EU also in some cases can be a benefit, and in most cases it's a benefit, because the reporting and KYC requirements that the EU can establish or has established already will not affect your storage in Switzerland. So definitely a very good option for you to go for very well old traditional storage and have very little concern about the security there. One country that may be a bit of a surprise on this list, or maybe not a surprise but not something that we talk about a lot and maybe people don't know, is New Zealand. So what is very good about New Zealand is that it's politically very secure. It is less exposed to the international like crisis and financial situations, which can be very beneficial if you want to make sure that your gold is protected and your wealth is protected through you keeping gold in New Zealand. And also it has a very high regard to the protection of private property, which also will be very helpful for you to make sure that you do not have any concerns in that regard. And even though it is not as well known as like Singapore and Switzerland, the infrastructure of keeping and maintaining gold in New Zealand is rather well developed. They have non-banking vaults, which are very effective and easy to coordinate even remotely. So New Zealand is definitely a gem, a bit of a hidden gem in regards to storing your gold there. And they have infrastructure, they have non-banking vaults, and they are less politically and financially exposed to the outside world. So it gives you more security and stability. So the next country on our list is the UAE, and it is not surprising because the UAE is a very business friendly and wealth friendly wisely. It means that the government has chosen the direction to make sure that the infrastructure is there to attract businesses and high net worth individuals. And it means that it is also trying to keep up with the demand of having a bit more diversification in your assets, and having a gold storage, privately held gold storage is an answer to that, which the UAE provides. It is also very good because there's no tax, no VAT or no capital gains tax on gold. So it, at the end of the day, is a very good option for you, especially if you have maybe some other ties to the UAE. But I would definitely advise you to not keep all your assets in one place. Diversify and see what's out there. A couple of other countries that I would maybe mention is Cayman Islands. Sometimes is something that we look into in regards to the gold storage. It doesn't have this big infrastructure, so you will not be able to hold a lot of gold there. But just to diversify, and maybe the answer to storing gold is not just one country, it can be a combination of both. And in that regard, maybe Cayman Islands could be one piece of that puzzle. Australia can also be mentioned on this list, which gives you good options, but has a bit of a tighter regulatory environment in that regard. And let's mention also Liechtenstein, because it gives you very good opportunities. However, it is a bit more expensive than all the other countries that we mentioned today. Now that we have broken down a couple of important countries that could give you a good wealth protection opportunities and diversification opportunities for you to keep your gold, I hope that it was interesting and it gave you a good direction to start looking into protecting your wealth a bit more. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you want to know more about how to store your gold, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply and we will be more than happy to assist you.
This is Bali. This is how to live like a king.